8 leading historians on the events that shaped our country, in bookstores now. Washington Journal.
Welcome back to Washington Journal. For about the next hour, we're joined by Imam Shaker Elsayed. He is the Secretary General of the Muslim Society, and he is filling in for a guest who could not make it this morning on very short notice, so thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, George, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Let me basics. We're beginning Ramadan today?
Yes.
What is Ramadan?
Ramadan, in fact, started yesterday.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes. And Ramadan, the month that follows on the 9th month of the lunar calendar. And it is a month of fasting for the Muslims. We fast from until sunset every day for 30 days. We break the fast at sunset. And in between, we do only abstain from food, drinks, and intimate relations, but also we abstain from every possible you don't backbite, you don't do this, you don't do that. So you are very much restrained. So fasting is really about self-control, reaching up to God and reaching up to your neighbors and everybody else around you.
Is this a time, can you tell the difference at this time during this month?
This is a time of spirituality is the key word here. People, they remember things about getting closer to the poor, the needy, getting closer to God in terms of memorization of the Quran, much more than any other month. And at the same time, they try to keep up with the night prayer after after they take the meal of the breakfast. They reach out to the mosques in hundreds. You couldn't believe it. Last night the mosque was overfull. We had to park at neighboring churches and stuff. So the community, it's about the family, it's about spirituality, and it's about the poor more particularly. But it is about self also. Self-restraint is the key, because in fasting, nobody knows that you're fasting but God.
Now, how did this originate?
It is a custom in all other religions. The Quran says that fasting has been prescribed for you as it has been for others before. So it is not something new that Prophet Muhammad invented. Previous religions used to have their own fasting, but it may be different as to abstain from. Some people abstain from, let us say, animal stuff and oil and so on and so forth. May not abstain for the whole day. So it really depends. Some may fast 10 days a year. So in our religion, it is 30 days.
And can you tell us just the basics for somebody who knows nothing of Islam, but who may be a Christian or a Jew or from some other... What Islam, tell us what is different in Islam from other religions?
Well, Islam is an Arabic. In English, it means submission and surrender. And religiously speaking, it means attaining peace through of the human will to the will of God. It is not something new, as many people think it is. Islam is a religion of Abraham, Jesus, and all other prophets. What we mean by this is that all of these prophets submitted to God. They gave their life. They gave all of their life. Abraham, for example, God told him, get ready, slaughter your son. He said, yes, Lord, and he was ready to do it. As God told him, you have to lay down your whole life for the service of God, and he did. Look at, for example, Jesus when he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. He made a statement that we think it is the heart of submission. When he said, my Lord, if you would take this cup away from me, nevertheless, my will, your will be carried, not my will. This is mission. So Christians should not wonder if Muslims say, no, Jesus was a Muslim, because in fact he was by that definition.
But Muslims do not consider Jesus to be the Son of God.
We consider Jesus to be a righteous prophet in a chain of prophets that preceded him and one that came after him. In fact, the term Son of God has a definition that we believe that some people took the metaphor to use it literally. In the book of Romans, all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. So in that context, Jesus, Muhammad, and all of us who are led are sons of God. But to take it literally is to mean that God has begotten a son, which is something befit the majesty of God, to lower him down to our level. We beget children and we play with our children. The metaphors used in the gospel are just that. They are metaphors. But people, when you use it literally, even Jesus, when he said, I and my Father are one, and the Jews started to pick stones to stone him, he defended himself. He didn't say, I'm telling you, I and my Father are one. He didn't say this. Say, isn't it true that you call each other gods? Which means you are using metaphors all the time. So don't, I am blasphemous because I'm using the same metaphor. And then he went on to say, why do you stone me for only saying I am the Son of God? Alternative between using the metaphor of being one with God and the metaphor of being the Son of God. Both are metaphors. They mean closeness, righteousness, and obedience.
Now, you already have callers who want to talk to you, and I want to remind our callers we're dividing the phone line for the next hour. Our Eastern, instead of Democratic, Republican, and Independent lines, we're going to have Eastern and Central time zones, 202-737-0001. If you're in the Mountain or Pacific time zone, 202-737-0002. Canada, Mexico, or anywhere else outside the United States, 202-628-0205. You can see those numbers on your screen. And just one quick question. I'm referring to you as Imam Elsayed. What is an imam?
Imam is a leader of the community who leads them in. He gives the sermons, he guides people, he gives counseling. It's the typical role of a minister. We don't have a clergy in Islam, like a hierarchy, the Catholic Church and so on and so forth. We do have people of knowledge and scholarship who lead the community, who must be accepted to the community.
Then what is a mullah?
Well, it is another way of calling a person an imam, but it is in the text of hierarchy, because they do have a hierarchy in a way in the Shiite sect. They have, you know, the big imams, and then they have other imams who lead the community as well.
Okay. And then there's also an ayatollah is...
Yes, yes. That's on the top of the hierarchy.
And that's only in the...
that's only in the Shiite, yes.
Okay. All right. Our first call for Imam Elsayed is from Windsor.
Good morning. Mr. Saeed, I believe your name is. I want to ask you some questions about Mr. bin Laden's origination. Now, it's a known fact that the power structure in in the United States and the bin Laden family way back. It's a known fact that bin Laden and the Mujahideen fought against the Soviets, which inevitably to connections to our intelligence agencies and military circles. And it's a known fact that America gave the Taliban $3 million in May for their war on opium or whatever. Last night, or the night before last, I was watching news, and it said that Mr. bin Laden had been in the United Arab Emirates to go to a hospital, which is run by two Saudi sheiks. And at the time he was at the hospital, a CIA agent by the name of Larry Mitchell was at the same time. And I was just wondering, could bin Laden actually be still working for our intelligence agency? Is terrorism just a feint to bleed the Treasury, take away our civil liberties? So what do you think about that?
Thanks, caller.
It would be very difficult for me to imagine that we're fighting bin Laden and funding bin Laden at the same time. It just it's conceivable to me to believe that. But those reports are out there, and maybe in 20 years we'll get to know the facts, as usual.
Tell our callers, our viewers, our listeners, anybody who calls in, what we're trying to do for this next hour with Imam Elsayed is Ramadan, talk about Islam, talk about the religious aspects of this. I don't think we'll be able to steer clear of politics altogether because it is, there's a connection.
Focus on this.
If we can, yeah. Let's see how it goes. Our next call from Charlottesville, Virginia. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? I'm curious about how modern-day Islam interprets the Quran stresses that ascending to heaven for men, if you've been a good Muslim, you can be rewarded. Two virgins who have skin as translucent as paper. How does Islam deal with this concept that the reward is sexual favors in heaven from being a good Muslim?
Well, this is one of the statements that people spread about Islam and the Quran, that the Quran lures people by their desires and so on and so forth. But basically, paradise has been described as, in paradise, people get imagine anything they could ask for. So if people are focused on that end or this end, God is people in paradise whatever they ask for. But there is really nothing kind of like specific in the Quran itself about this. It is about having virgin wives, but this could be your wives that you are living with today. It is not conceivable that they would turn. In fact, there is a statement by the Prophet himself. When he talked about this, he says, this is the union of the for successful unions in this life, whereby if you have a happy marriage here, then you will have the same happy marriage over there, but youth, she will turn youth as well, and so on and so forth. So it is not something about sexuality more than it is about reunion of the hereafter.
You've referred to the Prophet and to the Prophet Muhammad. Who was the Prophet Muhammad?
Prophet Muhammad is one of the officers of Ishmael, the son of Prophet Abraham, who, you know, Prophet Abraham was born in Iraq, and he moved from Iraq to Palestine, Sarah. And he had also married later because Sarah would not beget children. So he married, that's called Hager, from Egypt. And Hager gave him the first child, that was Ishmael. He took Ishmael and Hager, settled them in Mecca, very close to the house of worship in Mecca. And this house of worship, we are told, was built by Adam. Years later, Adam built the farthest mosque in Jerusalem. So here is a full circle of prophets coming. Adam building this one, built a second one. Abraham comes to live in Palestine. Then he settles his first baby, Ishmael, in Mecca. After 16 years, Sarah begets him another child, that is Isaac. And as he settles Ishmael, and Ishmael grows up, and Ibrahim goes to visit him, and they remodel the building of the Kaaba again. So this is the building, yes.
That's what we're talking about right
Yes.
here. If we can show that on the...
So Prophet Muhammad is the great-grandchild of Prophet Ishmael, who is the son of Prophet Ibrahim. So as a message of Islam, Ibrahim, Isaac, Jacob, and then the Israelite prophets up through Jesus. And with all of this, and massacred in the midst of the children of Israel by the children of Israel themselves, like John the Baptist, Zechariah, so on. And Jesus also was, surrendered to the Romans to crucify him. And we, the message shifted from the Israelite side to the Ishmaelite side, as God said in the Old Testament that he will make a great nation. And Ishmael was never made a great nation through anybody but through Prophet Muhammad.
Okay. Callers back into the conversation. Lansdale, Pennsylvania, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I have a couple of small questions, short questions, if you could note down, please. Sure. Was Jesus virgin born, according to the, which means no man involved in the birth of Jesus?
Right.
And second question is, how did Islam all over the world from its very founding? Was it not at the sword? And the third question, did Muhammad pay anybody during his life? And the fourth question, that is a final question, short question. Muhammad never set foot. How did he ascend to heaven on a white horse from the Temple Mount?
Okay.
Okay, caller, thank you.
Okay, these are good questions. First of all, about Prophet Muhammad or the spread of Islam. Prophet Muhammad is his enemy, but only after 13 years of full persecution of himself, his family, his followers. 13 years in Mecca, they plotted a full-fledged assassination attempt on his life. Then he moved from Mecca to Medina altogether without shedding any drop of blood. As he moved to Medina, the pagans of Mecca plotted again to come after him and kill him in Medina. Then and only then he started fighting to respond to those assassination attempts.
We should point out Mecca and Medina are both cities now in Saudi Arabia.
Right. Mecca and Medina are in Saudi Arabia. Medina is about 300 kilometers north of Mecca, or northeast of Mecca.
And Mecca is where?
Mecca is on I would say the west of the Arabian Peninsula and very close to the shores of the Red Sea.
The 5 pillars of Islam, is it not that all good Muslims should try to go to Mecca at least once in their lives?
Yes, pilgrimage to Mecca is one of the basic of Islam, and the 5 pillars, if I may continue on this since you asked for it. The 5 pillars start with the declaration that you declare that if you actually believe in God, you believe in the angels, you believe in heaven, you believe in the hereafter, you believe in all that came before, including Jesus Christ, Moses, and all others. If you believe in previous scriptures, you believe in the scriptures, Moses, David, Abraham. As a Muslim, you must believe in all of those. Then if you believe in all of that and you want to make a commitment of that faith, declare your faith by stating, I bear witness that there is no deity but God, Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. By the way, is the Arabic word for the Hebrew word Elohim. They both come from the same root. The Arabic and the Hebrew languages are cousin languages. And it is also the word used for the deity by Arab Christians. They also called God Allah. So it is not a different God. In fact, the Quran says, say to the people of the book, i.e. Christians and Muslims, that we all believe in the same God. Our Lord and your Lord is one. So the 5 pillars, it is declaring the faith, which is the first pillar. The second is to pray 5 times a day. At dawn time, mid-afternoon, at sunset, and at night. So you have 5 anchors where you go back to God, thing you want, and come in submission, relieve your stress, re-energize your spirituality and connection with God.
5.
Well, this is what was mandated or prescribed to the Prophet when he went to the journey that the caller was asking, Mecca to Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem to heaven. It is at that time that prayer was prescribed for him. He said that he was given 50 prayers a day, but then he went down to the first heaven and he met with Moses, and Moses people are not going to be able to do it. You know, Moses' experience with his own people was very difficult. So he said, Muhammad, you know, be realistic, go back and ask for less. Back several times until they came down to 5.
I want to do the 5 pillars, but yes. I also want to make sure that we get our callers in here. So
okay.
let's just take another call here from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Elsayed.
Good morning, ma'am.
I'm curious that Islam is so like this, and so many people are suffering and dying all over the world for George Hager. Could you please tell me about this?
Well, it's quite unfortunate that in all religions, in fact, are using religions to kill. Islam allows to defend his life, his property, his family, and his land, of course. But you should never, ever attack somebody who did not. You should never, even during wars, legitimate wars, if you will, if at all can be legitimized, but legitimate wars, a Muslim should not be a civilian, not a woman, not a child, not somebody going about his life and business. This is why it was very appalling for us Muslims to look at the Trade Center and the Pentagon, because it runs very much opposite to the basic teachings of Islam. Is peace and mercy to mankind.
And yet bin Laden will consistently invoke Islam as the rationale for what
Bin
he's
Laden,
done.
I counted about 16 Islamic rules if he was the one behind it, and I'm sure that the government to show for it. He violated about 16 rules of Islam, and I can count them on if the time allows.
Well, we don't need all 6, 2 or 3.
Well, basically, he violated the rule of giving an etiquette for a public repercussion issue. A public repercussion issue or issue of public importance cannot be justified by one scholar, even if he were to be not. So he's assuming the role of the scholar, giving the etiquette, assigning execution of the etiquette. And these are 3 things that you can carry in one breath, Islamically speaking. Also, he violated the rule of targeting civilians. This is you can't do it during the war. It is a clear instruction from the Prophet. So this is a very clear violation. He also violated the rule of you can't drag the entire Muslim Ummah to a war of your own without giving them the time to counsel, to tell you to get into this war or not. So it is inconceivable that no advice, no consent, and he is not assigned on behalf of the Muslim Ummah. When I say the Ummah, I mean the worldwide community of Muslims. So he is neither elected or selected or appointed to act on. So he violated several rules, and these are the basic ones.
Okay, let's get another call here. This one from Jackson, Mississippi.
Morning.
Morning.
I have a question concerning how the Quran treat non-Muslims. I was told that they consider them infidels, and I was wanted to get your on that.
Very glad that you asked this question. In fact, the issue of the infidel has been very much floating in the media. Infidel is not used in the Quran. The word used is disbelievers. And I'm sure there is a difference of connotation between the two. It doesn't share your belief. And the Quran uses it frequently to distinguish what we believe in from what others believe in, who shares our belief. And as I mentioned before, especially the people of the book, i.e. Christians and Jews, are given a very special status because they are people who receive revelation from God according to our references. And that does not, by the way, exclude other religious faiths from the same level of freedom, the same level of support that they should get if they live as a minority within the Muslim community. So Islam firmly in the religious freedom and in the freedom of choices, whereby the clear statement in the Quran says, let there be in religion. So where Islam stands as far as faith is that you do not attack anyone for their beliefs. You only attack. The Quran also has a verse very clear. Fight not those who do not fight you in religion. Instead, be kind and accepting to them. Only fight those who fight you in religion or drive you out of your own homes. So wherever you see fighting, they should be fighting back, not fighting. They should not initiate aggression.
Okay. Our next call comes from California. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I just want to, well, basically he answered the questions I previously questions, but I have another question. I hear a lot on the Quran. It says that the people by the book, which is people, the Christian and the Muslim. Now, how do you answer about the people with the Buddhism or Hinduism? So are they not the people? Does that mean that they can be killed? Thank you.
Well, the classification of other religions is not a classification for execution. It is a classification of relevance, whereby the Jews and the Christians lived Scripture through the same Abrahamic tradition. That's why they have a special place. But as I mentioned before, it doesn't exclude others for the same degree of respect, the same degree of mercy, and so on and so forth.
And the Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, is
Yes.
that right? When? And what is its relationship to the earlier revelations to other
Prophet
faiths?
Muhammad was born 570 after Jesus, of course, 570 AD. And he lived for years. He got the revelation at about 610, which he was 40 years of age. And the revelation of the Quran is unlike other revelations. You know that people in the early revelations, they wrote the revelation well after the Prophet had left, like the and so on and so forth. When it came to the Quran, the Prophet dictated it directly to people around him, to scribes, who wrote it and time, and he would tell them where to put this verse, where to put this chapter, so on and so forth. So it is unlike any previous scripture. It was kept written and reviewed by the Prophet himself before he had died. So this is why Muslims hold it to a quote-unquote a fundamental perspective. They also believe that it is word for word the verbatim utterance of God. Of course, we don't consider this fundamentalism, but I'm comparing to relate to people who believe that of the Bible. They were said to be fundamentalists because from a Christian scholar perspective, they something that is not, because it is not really the verbatim utterance of God as it is the case of the Quran. But we do not, as many people think we do, that the Bible and the Torah is totally corrupt and totally unacceptable. In fact, there are references in the Quran to refer us to both the Gospel and to the Torah. So we believe that the Torah and the New Testament both have some of the words of the prophets, some of the words of the eye-ear witnesses, some of the words of historians and revisers of the Bible. And so it is not all a corrupt book that Muslims would never touch. It is a book of revelation, but it is with difficulty sort what is from God and what is from other sources.
So the Quran supersedes the Torah.
And in that way, supersedes,
improves on,
yes,
modifies.
And it does not change the basic teachings. You know, the Lord our God is one, and you have Lord with all your heart, all your spirit, and so on and so forth.
We got a long-distance call from Kingstown, Jamaica. Good morning.
Hi, Mr. Elsayed.
Thank you
for saying, if we're talking about the metaphor and how what we're really dealing with is a misunderstanding for, and that in essence there is one God. And there are many metaphors to go towards that God.
Yes.
Mentioning that.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, caller. I want to mention that Shaker Elsayed, who is General of the Muslim American Society, and I want to ask you about the society in just a minute, but let me tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you. Born in 1951 and I was a citizen of both Egypt and the United States, yes, right? And we're educated undergraduate in economics and independent Islam in Cairo, yes, and then later here graduate education in educational administration and psychology at the University of Houston. Right. And when did you come to the United States and why?
I came, well, it's an amazing story. I had a friend who came here to study. He was at Tulane University at that time. He called and he said, Shaker, you know, Islam is kind of like growing, but there is not enough would know English and Islam at the same time. So would you come and help? So I did. And that was the call. I actually came to the States.
And you'd learned English while you were in Cairo? And
I was teaching English when I was in Cairo.
Okay.
So that...
And you can be heard currently, I gather, on the radio.
Yes, I can.
And 700, is that around in Washington? Or?
Yes, it airs in Washington, Maryland, and parts of Delaware and Pennsylvania as well.
And that's 700 on the AM dial Monday and Thursday from
2:30 to 3:30.
2:30 to 3:30. So
yes,
if you're in this area, you can hear Shaker Elsayed.
It's a Muslim forum.
It's the Muslim forum. Is
yes,
it a call-in show?
It's a call-in show.
You're very used to this format.
Yes,
okay.
I am.
Well, I still want to get back to the 5 pillars, sure, but let's take another call here from locally from Washington.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I had a question. Earlier, someone asked you about how does the Quran talk about Jesus the Christ, and I wanted you to kind of elude on that, and also, does it say anything about the miracle?
Yes.
Raising Lazarus from the dead and turning water into wine. So can you expand on that, please?
Okay. The Quran speaks of Jesus and his mother. The Quran speaks of him as a purified son, a son of a virgin mother who conceived him miraculously by the word, the command word of God, be, and he became the one he was, peace be upon him. We believe in him as a messenger, a mighty prophet, a child who grew up with his mother. She taught him righteousness. They come from family themselves. And we knew in the Quran that he did many miracles with the leave of God, which means with the permission of God. God supported him to do it, as he supported Moses, for example, to split the sea with the head of a stick. Jesus also brought from the tomb as dead to life. And by the way, when he brought Lazarus, he referred to God as the actor, not himself. He said, "Oh, righteous God, I know that you hear me always, but I'm talking loud to you on the account of people standing by, so that they know that you have sent me." So at the peak of performing one of his greatest miracles, bringing people from death to life, to God as one who sent him. Jesus always separated himself from God as two, not one in physical essence, but one in purpose, one in direction. But he was created and God was the creator.
Next call from Riverside, California. Good morning.
Hi. You did not answer the gentleman's question that about the conception of Jesus, and also, is it your belief in Islam that Jews and Christians take it literally? And the last question is, how many different sects of Islam are there?
First of all, I said that Jesus was conceived and born miraculously, which means by the word of God, without having his mother marrying anybody. In fact, the gospel attests to the same thing. It says about Joseph the carpenter that he taught until she had born a child. So he is not the son of Joseph the carpenter, and he is not the son of God, if I'm in the literal sense, but he is the son of God in the biblical context of being a righteous person who is led by the Spirit. As far as Christians and Jews taking the Bible literally, I was referring to the fact that Jesus in parables all the time, and people sometimes took it literally, and our concept of that is to the basic fundamental central teachings of Jesus. The Hero Israel, the Lord our God is one, and Jesus himself never told anyone to worship him or to pray towards him or to seek things from him, but to seek things from God. 3, 8, and 9, if I may quote the gospel here with your permission. He says, "Call no man upon the earth your father, one is your Father who is in heaven. For you all, even Jesus Christ, are all but brethren." He talked of himself as a human being, as a brother to his community, to the disciples. He never elevated. In fact, he always insisted on separating himself from the deity of God himself.
We're talking with Shaker Elsayed, General of the Muslim American Society. One other question that last caller raised, and I don't remember all three, but he asked how many sects?
Yeah. I forgot that. Islam spread in the early days very smoothly, that it was the teachings of Islam that was taking over. By the time they were to choose a fourth caliph, some people started to dispute who qualifies best to be the caliph, who qualifies best to be the successor of the Prophet. And some of the Prophet and the supporters of anybody in Arabic, they are called the Shiites of this person. So you can have the Shiites of George. So the Shiites of Imam Ali became the Shiites who supported Imam Ali as the legitimate leader. The rest of the community said that Muawiyah was the legitimate fourth successor of the Prophet. So from the Shiite sect started to formulate, and later they established some sources of their own authentic besides the Quran. So as Muslims, we all believe in the Quran. We believe in the revelation of the Quran. We believe in the life of the Prophet, so on. But they have their own sets of books of references as to what the traditions are, or what were. at the time of the Prophet. This is where the difference is. You can find also a Sufi, but this is not, I do not like to call it, I would say it is not a perspective on theology. It is not a different perspective on worship, because we all worship the same, believe the same, we all take the same reference, which is the Quran. So it is not sect-like. For example, you find the Roman Catholic, so many books, the Orthodox have so many books, and so on, and they are different in references. It is not that. So in Islam, as many names as you wish, but the name that God chose for us is to be Muslims, all of us.
Okay, let's take our next call here.
Sure.
Very quickly, I think we had a website just a second ago, the Muslim American Society, and I wanted to show people that. And you can go to masnet.org, the Muslim American Society, masnet.org. And what is the Muslim American Society?
The Muslim American Society is an educational social service organization that reaches out to the community. We serve about 700 Islamic centers around the nation and about 400 schools. So we dispatch our people to do teacher training, imam training, conferences, community education, social service training, and so on.
Okay, let's take our next call from Kinston, North Carolina. Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, I want to thank you for C-SPAN and say good morning to Mr. Elsayed. And I understand that we respect all religions, but I believe that there's only one true God. That's the God of Abraham, that came down in the person of Jesus Christ. And there's only one way to God, and that's through Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for our sins. And hope you have both.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I say something on this?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I want to say that the statement that we hold to be very true for all prophets, that the way to God is always through prophets. So when we say, I'm the truth, that Jesus said, nobody comes to the Lord except through me. He also said that I have been as a light so that people would not live in darkness, which means he came here as guidance to us, and he was sent, which means he was a messenger. When he makes a remark, of course we have theological difference with the statement about God manifesting himself in the person of Jesus. There's basic differences between Islam and Christianity. We believe that God showed his power and revealed his power, and in the word that he revealed to the prophets altogether, and we are just required to follow that.
But what happened was after Christ lived,
yes,
Muhammad was told different, or
no, it was not different. In fact, Islam is a revival of the old forgotten prophetic traditions. Islam is the religion that brought people back to believe in monotheism instead of idolatry. Islam is the religion that corrected the faith between believing one in his own category and one that can mix and mingle with people like me and you and become friends. Islam also is that revived the prophetic traditions as to how to pray. We know in the gospel that Abraham fell on his face and prayed. Fell on his face and prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. So Muslims, when they pray on the floor today, people say, what are these prayer? We've never seen that, but this is the prophetic traditions.
Okay, our next call comes from Quebec.
Hi, good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
I'm so glad to talk to you. Sir, I am from one of the islands in the Caribbean, beautiful island, and my ancestors, okay? But I grew up in the Catholic, religion, because I went to school, the island is mostly Christianity.
Right.
Is that I was never taught anything about Muslim, and I don't have any knowledge of it. But the little that I heard in the island, it seemed to be so beautiful at that time. You could just feel so much glory in it. You understand?
Yes.
And I never thought what I'm hearing today out. This is something new to me. I would love to learn. Now, this made me a Muslim as of today. Since that happened in the 11th, I want to become a Muslim now. I would not forget Christianity. I would love to see Jews and Muslims both unite, because you're so similar. You all are so similar. Your name, your religion. My father's name is Solomon. His grandfather had said, in India, The reason India is a Hindu country, and is this true? Answer me. I always want to know this. The reason Muslim was spread in India is because the Arabs invaded India at one time.
Yes.
And Hindus are not Muslims at all because they are very prejudiced people, the Hindus. People don't know that. Everybody blaming the Muslims. I'm not against them either. So that's how Muslim became there. You understand?
Yes.
So the Arab, that is, I would love to be an Arab. Believe me, because I love my ancestors. I really think I have no Hinduism in me, and I'm going to claim myself as an Arab. And God really bless you Muslim people. I love the Muslim. And I'll tell you what, I always feel I'm part of Jewish religion too, because I'm not a Jew, but I want both of you. Christianity, Muslim and Jews, I beg God every day. I want you all to come together.
Okay, thank you, caller. Thanks. Let's
In fact, thank you for the call. Very kind words. In fact, if you made the choice to become a Muslim, you would not reinforce it and go back to its original teaching, that is, to submit to God. That's basically and simply it.
Okay. You know, there's 3 of the 5 pillars. Then I stopped you. The declaration of faith is number 1. Prayer.
Yes, prayer
5 times a day is second.
Then fasting comes a third month of the year from dawn to sunset. And as we said, in fasting, you abstain from food, drink, intimacy, sunset, and you also abstain from any negative behavior. So it is totally self-restraint. In fact, the Prophet said, people may be abstaining from food and drink for the whole day, but they get nothing out of their fasting except hunger and thirst, which means if they do not respect other aspects, to be kind, to be decent, to be merciful, and so on and so forth. So fasting comes as a third.
I don't mean to be trivial, but here you are talking no water until sundown tonight.
Right. In fact, I thought about this as I was coming. and
we're at a time of year when the time between sunrise and sunset is shorter, but does Ramadan move through the year, or is it all?
It does. It moves between summer and winter, and that gives a different flavor every year. It moves 10 days or 11 days forward. So this year is in November, next year it will be 11 days earlier, and so on and so forth.
All right.
So the third pillar is to pay a due charity. You pay 2.5% of your total net worth. If you have savings that exceed money like $1,000 or so, by our current estimate, then, and you did not touch it for 1 year, then you $25 on the 1,000, or 2.5% to the poor, the needy, charitable organizations, and so on and so forth. Is pilgrimage, and pilgrimage is one very fascinating pillar in Islam. It's done once in a lifetime. Only mandatory on those who can afford it financially and physically to go to the Holy Shrine of Mecca and to perform certain rites, R-I-T-E-S, and to revive and remember what Prophet Abraham did, what Adam did as they built that. As I mentioned in the beginning, it brings humanity one full circle. Adam started the first house of worship that was built for humanity in Mecca.
And I'm showing here on the map the location of Mecca
yes, Mecca in Saudi Arabia.
And then let's just show here also, if we can, RoboCam here again. We've shown this photo. What is this structure here?
This is the Holy Shrine of Mecca, which is a cubic building, and this is people around it. This place takes about, I'm told, about a field full of people.
So thousands and thousands and thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
And what actually?
It has nothing inside. It used to have idols before the advent of Prophet Muhammad, about 360 idols that he, after he left to Medina and came back to Mecca, he removed all of these idols, as Abraham did. You remember Abraham also, the idols. So when people, open their mouth with how did people destroy the temples in Afghanistan with all our regard to the Buddhists and everything, but there's no Buddhist in Afghanistan, and these temples were items of idol worship, and idol worship is prohibited in the Abrahamic religions altogether. Prophet Muhammad removed the idols from the Kaaba from the Holy Shrine, and he cleaned it for prayer.
And it is now empty?
It is completely empty.
Do people go in? Can you go inside?
Well, it's only open inside once a year before the season for the king or some of the representative of the protectors or servants of the Holy Shrine to come inside. But it is not open for the public because people would really flock in hundreds of thousands. They would not be able to do it even.
Ben, have you made the pilgrimage?
Yes, I've made it several times.
What's it like?
It is a very fascinating experience. I remember the words of Malcolm X when he said, after he went there, he was a Muslim before he went a few years, and when he went there, he felt something extremely different. I ate from one plate with the whitest of white people. Malcolm X was an African American, and that gave him on what religion and humanity can be and do together when they transcend the color and the ethnicity and the race.
Required, I think, or it's the custom to wear a simple garment.
Yes, in the pilgrimage, people wear men would wear two pieces of clothes, white clothes, one to cover his top and one to cover his undergarment, if you will, and it goes like a sheet, if you will, around the waist, and they would wear it for the entire process of pilgrimage. They start visiting this house first, and then they go to a place called Mina, where they stay overnight. Then the second day they would move early in the morning to go to the Mount Arafat. And Mount Arafat is where it is said that Adam and Eve met and each other when they were sent down to earth. That's why it's called Arafat, from the word acknowledgement. So they acknowledged each other when they came down there. So we stay there for from early in the morning until sunset, and as soon as the sun down to a place called Muzdalifah, and then you pick three stones, three sets of stones, to where you stone symbolically the devil that tempted Abraham not to slaughter his son at three places. So you go to every place and symbolically you stone the devil as a sign of resentment and to the temptation of the devil. And you move from there back to the Holy Shrine. You circle around it for 7 times as Abraham, and then you finish by passing on between the two hillets, one called As-Safa and the other called Al-Marwa. The two hillets, Hajar used to run to seek water for her baby Ishmael at the time that they were there by themselves.
I have to note there are some people here dressed in black. Women?
Women would dress mostly in black, but they can dress in any other color, but they should dress modestly, remove the face cover if they had face cover, and they would do the same thing like men.
All right. Thank you. Let's take another call here from Baltimore. Good morning.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for taking my call. I have to respond to 3 statements that Jesus made in the Gospels. One was when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the light, coming to the Father but by me. And also when he said to Thomas, one of his disciples, Thomas asked him, show us the Father, and his response, see me, you see the Father. And third and lastly, when he was debating with the Pharisees, and they brought up Jesus in turn said, before Abraham was, I am. He was referring to the same I am that gave Moses instructions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are very loaded theological points. I don't know if I'll go over this, but I would say simply, as I mentioned before, when he mentioned, I am the way, the light, and the truth, nobody. He also was the same one who said, I came as light to this world, okay, which means I was sent as light. And when a prophet or a person uses, I was sent, he is referring to himself, somebody sent him. So this is the context. Also, when he says, if you see me, you've seen the Father, this really as one statement out of so many others, because he separated himself from the Father in several other of saying it's only the Father who is in heaven when he was himself on earth. So he always separated himself from the Father as far as concerned the deity. He never claimed to be the deity. In fact, in Christian theology, if you think that the Son is the Father, there is no mix in there. But as I said before, it is a metaphoric usage of the language that people turned in some ways using very few verses to refer to him as the deity, one and the same, when he separated himself in many. For example, he said, I can do nothing on my own, but by the authority given to me. In other places, of God, that I cast out devils, which means it is only by the power of the Creator. So as a prophet of his own, his power is given to him. And if it is given to him, it means what? That it is a miracle for him to do it. It's not intrinsic. He doesn't stand on himself by himself, but it is with the support of God, like many other prophets. As I mentioned, for example, Abraham fire. He didn't get out on his own. It is God who saved him. Moses, crossed the sea with the children of Israel on his own. It was also with the help of God. When he hit the sea with a stick and split it into two side mountains, it was his own power and his own authority. So I would refer the caller to some of the other writings. William will really, who wrote Jesus is not God. And he's a Christian theologian. He's not a Muslim theologian. And he cites so many things to say that Jesus is not God. And I believe that this issue makes us less like each other. We are all trying to get each other to the side we think is better. And God is a judge. He taught us in the Quran, he said, talk to the people of the book that we should all worship one God. And at the end of the verse it says, if bear witness that we are Muslims, which means there is no animosity. Worship anyone you want, but at the end of the day, Jesus himself is God. And we know that from the scripture itself.
We're talking with Shaker Elsayed. He is the Secretary General of the Muslim American Society. You can find American Society on the web at www.masnet.org. And you can Shaker Elsayed on his own radio talk show. If you live in the Washington, D.C. area, 700 on your AM dial, Mondays and 30 to 3:30. We've got about another 4 or 5 minutes. And our next call comes from St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I have two questions. One is there there's a lot of things in Islam get confused with Arab culture. Specifically, a lot of things, I would quote off the top of my head how women are treated as opposed to Islam. And can you clarify the difference? I think there's a lot of people that don't understand that a lot of what happens in these countries is culture and not Islam. And my second question is democracy. Is democracy an Islamic principle? And if it is, how do we justify some of the repressive governments in the Middle East, i.e. Iraq and Iran and all the others? Okay. How can countries like that exist being a Muslim country?
Okay, thank you very much. Two loaded questions, one about women, one about democracy. Women in Islam, 1400 years ago, have been given the right to inherit, the right to run their own business, the right to own their own property in their own, the right to pass on inheritance and write wills and contract and conduct business without the husband. They have their own business identity separate and financial identity separate and financial responsibility also separate. Been given that freedom several 100 years, centuries ago. As far as the Muslim women dress is very much similar to what in Christianity you would call the nun. I don't know why Christians are wondering about the dress of women as they are coming from the moon or the Mars or something like this. It's a dress of modesty and it's protection. The only issue is we don't have clergy and we don't have nuns in Islam. All women are prescribed to dress in the same way. over their head, their bosom, and their rest of their body, and not to show anything but their face and hands if they so desire. And they dress in loose-fitting, long dresses. So the dress of women is not culture. The dress of women is Islam. When it's taken to an extreme whereby people are, for example, not allowing women to work, not allowing women to study, that is all. Women are expected to study, expected to learn. They are the mothers of the children. They are the educators that train generation. So Islam requires them to learn, requires them to work and contribute to the society if they can. Of the woman is her home. So if there is a contradiction, the priority goes to the children. And this is not a decision that is to without consultation, like she's not going to be repressed, said you have to stay home. It is a family decision unlike all others. Men in the home, they are leaders, but not dictators. They consult with the women and they make decisions together. I move quickly to the democracy because I know we're running out of democracy and Islam. Islam embraces democracy, but there are certain issues that have been in the Quran. So issues decided in the Quran or in the teachings of the Prophet are not subject to public opinion. Make whatever decision based on the majority. Okay. But the leader of the Muslim community must be elected and accepted with the consent of.
Our last call for Shaker Elsayed comes from Cincinnati, Ohio. Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to ask your guest what his view of Wahhabi, since that seems to be, from what I've read, what Osama and his followers seem to adhere to.
Okay. Another question very quickly. The Wahhabi is in reference to a scholar who came about years ago by the name Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. He is one of, Ibn Taymiyyah came 600-700 years ago. Al-Wahhab came a little bit later to be part of the foundation of the theological foundation of the state of Saudi Arabia. As he embraces one of the noted madhabs in Islam, the noted school of thoughts, that is the Hanbali madhab, and does not divert much from the basic fundamental mainstream teachings of Islam, except that some people may have focused how do you dress, how long is your beard, no interaction whatsoever between men and women, private life, except for their own close relatives and so on and so forth, which is a strict form of Islam and acceptable also, how committed the person is. So it is not all a wacko version of Islam, if you will, but it does not include what Osama bin Laden is trying to make it include. We know that his family disowned him, his country withdrew his citizenship and so forth, because his aggression against non-Muslims is un-Islamic.
Well, we got to about a third of my questions, but we got a callers and viewers' questions, so thank you very much. Shaker Elsayed is the Secretary General of the Muslim American Society, and I think I've already said, but if you want to tune in, if you live in this area, 700 on your AM radio dial Mondays and Thursdays from 2:30 to 3:30, or go to www.massnet.org.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming in on such short notice. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we are going to take a look at some art.